Have you ever noticed that the quietest child in the room often carries the heaviest weight? The one who sits still, never interrupts, never asks for much, always follows the rules. On the outside, they look perfect, a parent's dream, a teacher's pride, polite, disciplined, obedient. But under that calm surface, there is often a quiet ache, a pain no one sees. It hides behind smiles, behind nods, behind a simple yes. What seems like flawless behavior in childhood can leave wounds that are hard to name. This is the story of the obedient child. Not just the one you remember, but the one still living inside many adults today. Every child comes into the world with raw feelings and natural impulses. They cry when they're hurt, laugh when they're happy, run when energy bursts through them, push back when something feels wrong. But what happens when they learn their laugh is too loud? Their questions are too many. Their tears are inconvenient. Their resistance unwelcome. When a child becomes too obedient, too agreeable, too good, they often trade parts of themselves for approval, and that exchange can echo for a lifetime. Little by little, they begin to shrink. They replace honesty with acceptance, and that is where the hidden pain begins. Psychologists call it conditional love. Love that feels available only when you behave the right way. Many obedient children grow up believing that love and safety depend on compliance. They become experts at reading the room. They sense what others want. They adjust themselves to fit. It may look like maturity, but often it becomes a lifelong habit of self-silencing. Here's what many people overlook. Obedience is not always a sign of health. Sometimes it's survival, a way to avoid rejection, abandonment, criticism. It's as if the child whispers inside, "If I'm good enough, quiet enough, helpful enough, maybe I'll be loved." Now pause. Picture the adult this child becomes. You might know them. You might be them. The adult who struggles to say no, who accepts extra work while running on empty. The friend who listens for hours but rarely shares their own pain. The partner who avoids conflict at any cost. These are often the grown faces of the once obedient child. But why does this hurt so deeply? Why does being good come with such a price? The answer is authenticity loss. Humans are wired to express themselves, to cry, to argue, to laugh, to play, to question. When these impulses are pushed down again and again, something splits. The outer self becomes polished, pleasant, controlled. The inner self grows quiet, faded, sometimes forgotten. Over time, that inner voice grows faint, until the person no longer knows who they are beyond pleasing others. Let me ask you something. Why do so many adults struggle with identity, with purpose, with self-worth? What if their first lessons were not about discovering who they were, but about becoming who others needed them to be? That is the silent legacy of the obedient child. And here's something important. Research in developmental psychology shows that children who are overly obedient often report lower self-esteem later in life. Why? Because they were never given room to build an identity beyond compliance. They were praised for shrinking themselves, not for exploring who they were. Let's go deeper. Picture a child who longs to paint in bold colors, but is told to stay inside the lines. A child who wants to ask why the sky is blue, but is hushed because the question comes at the wrong time. A child who wants to say, "I'm sad," yet forces a smile because sadness makes others uncomfortable. Slowly, that child learns a lesson. Self-expression is risky, and whatever feels risky gets pushed down. But buried emotions don't vanish. they change shape. They can turn into anxiety, into perfectionism, into a hollow feeling that success can't fill. This is the paradox of obedience. Society applauds it. Parents display it proudly. Teachers reward it. Yet few people stop to ask, what did that child give up to be so good? Here's something to consider. The obedient child grows up believing their value depends on performance, on being helpful, on keeping the peace. But what happens when obedience stops working? What happens when they follow every rule at work and still get passed over? When they give everything in a relationship and still feel unloved? When they stay quiet among friends and still feel unseen? That's when the hidden pain rises to the surface. That's when the cracks appear. Because this story isn't only about childhood. It's about patterns that follow us into adult life. Silence becomes people-pleasing. Compliance becomes exhaustion. The search for approval becomes a constant struggle with self-worth. And here's the striking part. Many obedient children don't even notice the weight they carry. To them, obedience isn't a decision. It's who they are. It feels automatic, natural. They don't see how much of themselves faded along the way. But this isn't a hopeless story. Hidden inside that pain is strength. The obedient child often develops deep empathy, sensitivity, awareness. They read emotions easily. They hold space for others. They bring calm into chaos. These are real gifts. The question is this: must those gifts always cost them their true self? Or can they learn balance? Obedience with authenticity, kindness with boundaries, harmony with honesty. The real journey is about reclaiming their voice, about realizing their worth is not earned through constant agreement, but exists simply because they are human. And that shift is more than healing. It's transformative. When the obedient child finally speaks their truth, they don't just liberate themselves. They change what comes after them. Now let's go even deeper. Why does society reward obedience so strongly? Why do we smile at the quiet child and criticize the loud one? Why do we celebrate the easy student and call the spirited one difficult? Maybe as a culture, we feel safer with compliance than with authenticity. Maybe we prefer children who fit smoothly into systems over those who question them. If that's true, then the pain of the obedient child isn't only personal, it's cultural. It reflects a world that values order over individuality, performance over presence, silence over voice. So here's a question to hold on to. We'll return to it next time. What kind of world do we create when it's filled with adults who were once obedient children? Adults who know how to adapt, to please, to disappear, but never fully learned how to simply be. So let's return to that question. What happens to a world filled with adults who were once obedient children? Adults who learned that being good meant being quiet, that pleasing others was safer than being honest, that love had to be earned, not freely given. The answer is everywhere. You see it in workplaces where people stay in draining jobs. They endure in silence, afraid to speak up, afraid to walk away. You see it in relationships where one partner keeps giving, hoping sacrifice will finally secure love, while their own needs fade into the background. You see it in friendships where someone always listens, but rarely feels heard, always supports, but seldom receives support. On the surface, these adults seem dependable, reliable, selfless, but look closer. You'll notice the tiredness in their eyes, the quiet resentment building underneath, the deep desire to be valued not just for what they do, but for who they are. And here's the hard truth. This pain often stays invisible because obedient adults don't make noise. They don't demand. They don't disrupt. Yet inside, they carry a steady exhaustion, the fatigue of living a role instead of a real life. Let's look at this through psychology. Research in developmental psychology and attachment theory describes something called the false self. The false self is like a mask, polished, agreeable, easy to accept, but it hides the authentic self beneath it. Over time, this mask becomes so familiar that the person forgets what's underneath. Still, the true self doesn't vanish. It waits quietly for a chance to emerge. Sometimes it slips out through art, through sudden emotion, through small acts of rebellion. Sometimes it waits years, until adulthood finally feels safe enough to be real. So here's the deeper question. How do you reconnect with your authentic self after years of obedience? The first step is awareness. Recognizing that what feels natural may actually be conditioning. Noticing when you say yes while everything inside you says no. Sensing the gap between what you show and what you feel. This awareness can hurt, because it often brings grief. Grief for the child whose feelings were silenced. Grief for relationships where you never felt fully seen. Grief for the years spent as a quieter version of yourself. But grief, painful as it is, clears space. It opens the door for change. The second step is permission. Permission to exist beyond expectations. Permission to rest, even when tasks remain. Permission to say no, even if someone wants yes. Permission to feel emotions that are messy or inconvenient. This is how you begin uncovering the self that obedience buried. And then comes courage. Because authenticity can disappoint people. It can create tension. It can challenge systems built on compliance. But here's the paradox. Only through that courage do you find relationships, careers, and communities that value you not for your obedience, but for your truth. Now take a step back. Why does this matter to everyone, even those who don't see themselves as obedient children? Because much of society runs on obedient adults. Our schools, our workplaces, even our families. They often depend on people who adjust, who stay quiet, who suppress themselves. And yet, the greatest breakthroughs, the deepest art, the most powerful social change have always come from people who dared to step beyond obedience. That's why the hidden pain of the obedient child matters. If we ignore it, if we never name it, we risk raising generations who know how to function and comply, but never truly live. This is where hope appears. The obedient child is not meant to stay hidden forever. Many adults who carried this quiet weight eventually begin to wake up, sometimes through therapy, sometimes through a safe friend or partner, sometimes through art, writing, or spiritual reflection. And sometimes it starts with a simple question. What do I really want? What do I truly feel? Who would I be if I stopped trying to be good and started trying to be real? These questions can feel unsettling, but they are freeing. They slowly peel back the layers of obedience and reveal the self that has been waiting underneath. Try this thought experiment. Imagine a child who never had to earn love through compliance. A child who could show sadness without fear, joy without shame, anger without rejection. What kind of adult would they become? Likely someone grounded, someone who balances kindness with clear boundaries, someone brave enough to create and challenge. Now imagine offering that same space to yourself, to reparent the obedient child within, to gently say, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to say yes to everything. You are worthy simply because you exist. This shift is not only personal, it's cultural. Every time an obedient child, now grown, chooses authenticity, they give others permission to do the same. They model a different way to live, a way where love is not earned through compliance, but shared through honesty. Perhaps this is the hidden gift inside the hidden pain. Those who understand the cost of obedience often understand the value of freedom. Those who once silenced themselves can become powerful voices for themselves and for others. Still, let's be honest, this isn't easy. Breaking patterns of obedience can feel like betrayal. Betrayal of family expectations, of cultural rules, of long-held beliefs. But what feels like betrayal at first often becomes liberation. Because true loyalty is not to the mask. It is to who you really are. So let me leave you with this. If you were once the obedient child, your pain is valid. But it is not the end of your story. Beneath obedience lives empathy, sensitivity, strength. Beneath silence lives a voice that deserves space, and beneath hidden pain lies the chance for a new beginning. A life where your worth is not measured by how well you obey, but by how fully you live. And if you are raising or guiding children now, remember this. The goal is not flawless obedience, not a child who never questions or resists. The goal is a child who feels safe enough to be themselves, because that child will grow into an adult who carries not hidden pain, but authentic light into a world that deeply needs it. The obedient child may have been quiet, but their story is not. It is the story of countless adults learning, slowly and bravely, to step out of the shadows and into their true selves. And maybe that is the real lesson. Goodness is not obedience, it is authenticity. Love is not earned, it is given. And even the most obedient child can become deeply authentic if they are willing to reclaim who they are.